So we finally switched POVs to where Yuji and Higuruma are fighting Sukuna, and I don't know if this confirms that Kenjaku's actually dead or not, and we get taken back to a flashback of the sorcerers finalizing their plans, and we see Kusakabe leading the meeting, and he starts with how they'll take down Kenjaku and says that Takaba will make an opening and Okotsu will go and finish him. But they need Yuta to do that fast and come right back to the battlefield versus Sukuna. But the tricky part is in their fight versus Sukuna. And there's a lot of dialogue in this chapter, so I'm gonna be going over like all the info and all the dialogue very briefly, and I'll be summarizing most of it. But for facing Sukuna, Kusakabe says they need to choose who's gonna fight and who's not. And Kashimo gets mad and says that it's an all-out war, so everyone should just jump in at the same time to fight him. But Kusakabe says that what's the point in sending people who can't make openings and will just get killed immediately? And he mentions Miwa. On top of her lack of strength, in Shibuya she placed a binding vow on herself to never swing a katana again. So he essentially just calls her useless as one of the people who shouldn't go in to fight Sukuna. And Kamo's in the meeting too. It's been a while since we've seen him. I think it's been since Tokyo Colony number 2 in his fight versus Naoya. But he apologizes and says that he doesn't want to take part in the mission because he can't be of any help and he wants to watch over his family as much as possible. So he's taking his family and he's going overseas. But Yuji interjects and says that he's not useless and he is of help because he can learn from Kamo, and says that Choso basically sucks at teaching. And Higuruma says he'll go after Kashimo and he'll use his curse technique to confiscate Sukuna's curse technique. He adds that if he gives Sukuna a death penalty, then he could fight using Executioner's sword. And Kashimo gets pissed again and says, "Do you really think I'll lose? I'm getting pissed." And of course, his old buddy Hikari has to calm him down, saying, "It's just an assumption. We all appreciate that you gave up your spot for Gojo." And Kashimo says, "I'm not satisfied." Kusakabe asks if Higuruma can confiscate and lay death penalty on Sukuna for sure. Yuji says it depends on which charge will Judgment use, which Higuruma can't choose. Yuji says Sukuna has switched 3 times so far and has killed many people whenever he did switch. And then we get Higuruma summarizing Sukuna's wrongdoings. Harmed Itadori, took over Itadori's body, attempted murder on Gojo Satoru, murdered Itadori. This might be attempted murder because he came back to life. Attempted murder on Fushiguro, murdered 2 curse users in high school, attempted murder on several citizens, murdered a curse user with a side tail, committed arson. And Higuruma further says after taking over Megami's body, Sukuna could be charged with harming Megami, complete murder, stealing a dead body. All these depend on the situation Megami's in though. But Higuruma says questioning Sukuna's crime on the harm his fingers has caused is hard. And we go into a bunch of lawyer stuff, them talking about the rules and how his curse technique works, and it's kind of a lot to summarize. So I'm just gonna skip them talking about it. But right before we get back to the battlefield, Yuji and Higuruma talk about whether Sukuna's crimes from 1,000 years ago would be charged or not. Higuruma says the modern law might not work on pre-reincarnated Sukuna. Judgment is a Shikigami equipped to his curse technique, so if Higuruma thinks it's possible, Judgment will probably think the same. But Higuruma says he doesn't know which curse technique Sukuna will be confiscated of, 10 shadows or a shrine. Yuji says that there might be a way which will guarantee Sukuna a death sentence. But we're finally back to the fight, and we see Mei's crows nearing Sukuna, but they get destroyed immediately. Mei, who is looking at it from afar, realizes that her crows won't work on the likes of Gojo, Kenjaku, and Sukuna, people of that level. But Mei says she managed to distract Sukuna for a bit, and now everything's up to Higuruma. As he comes in swinging, as Higuruma's huge hammer destroys where Sukuna is standing, and Yuji crushes the debris into small pieces and sends them flying towards Sukuna. And Higuruma manages to bind Sukuna's weapon, and we finally see Yuji land his first punch on Sukuna of the Heian era, and Sukuna feels his entire body shaking for a moment and wonders what that was. And we finally see Higuruma open his domain, Deadly Sentencing. Yuji tells Higuruma that they can use the trail from the time they both fought and use it against Sukuna. They can add Sukuna as a co-defendant of mass murder in Shibuya and sentence Sukuna. Higuruma begins the trial against Yuji and Sukuna. Judgment says Yuji is suspected of mass murder in Shibuya, but Higuruma defends saying Yuji didn't kill anyone, and his confession was due sense of responsibility. What the true criminal is, and we get a break next week, guys. And this chapter, I found it pretty dope, seeing how we got finally insight on how they discussed their plan and how they would take action. And I don't know if it's just me, but in Kenjaku's part of the plan, it almost seems like they're so nonchalant about it and almost seem like it's a guarantee that Yuta is gonna kill him and just come right back for Sukuna. Because the way they kind of brushed it off, said, "Yeah, Yuta, you go do that and come right back. We're gonna need you for Sukuna." It makes it seem like Kenjaku's kind of they're not really too worried about Kenjaku, and the plan for Sukuna is very unsure and kind of it could go any way. And what I also liked about it is how they mentioned how not anyone could just go out there on the same battlefield as Sukuna, and there's like a certain type of magnitude to this battle, and that not any sorcerer can just go on there and help out.